The sky was on fire. Outpost Trident had never seen anything like it. One moment, everything was quiet. The next, the sky cracked open. Burning lights streaked down from orbit, lighting up the dark side of the planet. The people looked up, some in fear, some in confusion, but all knew something was wrong. Then came the sound. A deep shaking rumble. Not thunder. Not weather. Engines. War engines. The Drexer Empire had arrived. No warning, no message. Just warships. Dropships fire they. Were the most powerful empire in the galaxy. The Drexer didn't negotiate. They didn't ask. They took. And now they had come for this forgotten human outpost at the edge of space. Outpost Trident was small, not a real colony. More like a station with farms and fuel depots, some families, some old soldiers. Nothing that should threaten a galactic empire. That's why no one saw the attack coming, not even Earth. The Drexer's plan was simple. Hit fast, wipe the outpost, take control. They called it a quick kill, a routine operation. In their command ship, General Varak watched from orbit. He had led hundreds of raids like this. There was no fear in him, only routine. Deploy the Scorchers, he ordered calmly. No survivors. Below, on the ground, the first Drexer dropship slammed into the surface like hammers. Black metal. Sharp angles. Glowing red runes across their hulls. Troops poured out. Over 2 meters tall, armored head to toe. Silent. Efficient. Trained to kill humans without hesitation. They moved through the outer farms first. Burned them. Anyone who ran was shot. Anyone who fought was crushed. It was supposed to be over quickly. 5 minutes, 10 at most. A simple wipe. But then something strange happened. One of the Drexer squads lost contact. No signal. No visuals. Just silence. General Varak frowned. He ordered another squad to investigate. They entered the same area, moved in formation. Weapons. Ready? Eyes scanning. Still nothing. Then their cameras picked up movement. Flash. A shape. Too fast? One of them shouted. Static. A scream. Then silence again. 2 squads gone. No sign of a fight. No gunfire. Just gone. Varak narrowed his eyes. It's nothing, he told his second in command. Maybe underground systems? Maybe. Old traps. Continue the advance. But deep inside, something pulled at him. Something wasn't right. Back on the surface, the main Drexer force reached the center of the outpost. The buildings were empty. Power was out. No people. Just flickering lights, loose wires, the quiet hum of wind. It looked abandoned. This is wrong, one of the Drexer captains said. Where are the bodies? Another replied. Scanners show movement underground. Then we go down. They entered the bunker. Doors slid open slowly. The hallway was dark, wet, filled with dust. The Drexer stepped in, one by one. Their armor glowed red in the dark. Then the door slammed shut behind them. Their lights flickered. Weapons jammed. Comes. Went dead. One shouted, "It's a trap!" Too late, the darkness moved. Shapes in the shadows. Silent. Fast. Not normal humans. The last thing, the command. Ship saw was a flickering FIDA helmet camera capturing something, dragging a soldier into the dark hand, then black. General Varak stood frozen, his face twisted. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He ordered his fleet to scan the area again. Heat signatures. Energy patterns. Suddenly, the entire outpost lit up. Turrets rose from the ground. Old defense cannons locked onto the Drexer dropships. Artillery fired from inside the mountains. Drexer ships exploded mid-air. Inside the outpost, loudspeakers turned. On. A voice echoed across the battlefield. Calm. Cold. You made a mistake. The Drexer on the ground paused. Some looked around. Others raised weapons. The voice continued. You picked the wrong outpost. Then another explosion shook the ground. Vark shouted to his officers. What is this place? No one had an answer. The data they had said this outpost was unarmed. Unprotected, forgotten. Now it was killing his best soldiers like animals. He tried to send a warning back to Drexer's command. But even their long-range comms were jammed. The Empire was blind. Below, in the heart of the outpost, a man watched everything. On a screen, his name was Cain Vos. Gray hair, his cold eyes, armor scarred and worn, once a hero, now a ghost. He had died 5 years ago, so the galaxy thought. But Cain wasn't dead. He had gone off the grid. Deep black, buried inside projects. Earth denied. Ever existed? He had turned Outpost Trident into a trap, test site, a place to study war, to build the next generation of human defense. And now, it's the most powerful empire in the galaxy had walked right into it. Cain didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just watched. Send the message, he told the AI beside him. A second later, every Drexer helmet, every screen on their ships, every device they had all, showed one line of text, "Welcome to Trident. You won't leave." Some Drexer panicked. Others screamed. Few tried to run, but the sky was no longer theirs. Gunships rose from hidden launch bays. Cloaked drones buzzed through the clouds. Human tech never seen before. Fast, smart, deadly. They hunted the Drexer like wolves. General? Varak realized too late. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. A warning to the entire galaxy. Earth is not weak. Earth is watching, and if you come for humanity, you better be ready to pay, because sometimes the outpost you think is broken. It's where the real war begins. Smoke curled through the sky above Outpost Trident. The battlefield was scattered with debris-burning Drexer dropships, broken armor, and the black scars of plasma fire. The once quiet outpost was now a graveyard, but not for humans. A single Drexer scout stumbled through the ash. His armor was cracked, blood dark and thick dripped from a tear in his leg plating. His breathing was shallow. His hands trembled. He clutched a comm unit. "Command, this is Unit 7, ... We've lost squads 1 through 5. Some things. Here, it's not just humans, ... The feed cut off. Back in orbit, aboard the flagship Varker's Wrath, General Varak stared at the blank screen. 5 squads. He growled. His second-in-command nodded, trying to keep his voice calm. Gone. No visuals. No signals. No bodies recovered. Claws tapped against the command table. They were elite Drexer. They don't just vanish. "No, sir," the officer said. "But something in that outpost, ... is hunting them." Varak turned to the tactical display. The outpost was showing no power. No surface weapons active, no signs of life. But that couldn't be true. His men were dying. Ships were exploding. Something was there. He didn't believe in ghosts. But this place was cursed. "Send in the Flameborn," Varak ordered. That meant his personal guard, the best warriors in the Drexer fleet, 7-foot monsters, trained from birth. Each had fought in over a dozen planetary raids. No mercy, no fear. They launched from the flagship in silence. Their dropship descended quickly, fire trailing from its engines as it ripped through the atmosphere. It landed near the outposts. Command tower? Nothing moved. The ground was quiet. The Flameborn stepped out, scanning in all directions. They spoke little. Their armor gleamed. One of them activated his visor, reading low heat signatures. "Some underground," he said. "Tunnel." "Systems?" another asked. "Unmapped. Not in our records." They moved in, weapons drawn. Eyes sharp, they entered the outpost's center where the Drexer had first disappeared. The command tower stood tall, untouched. Its doors hung open. Inside, darkness. They stepped through. The lights flickered. The floor was covered in dust and old footprints. But the sensors picked up no recent movement, no life. And yet the silence pressed down like weight. Then one of them froze. "Did you hear that?" The others paused, a low hum, like metal grinding, something breathing. Raised their rifles. A door opened down the hall. Not from their side. A figure stood in the doorway, not Drexer, not civilian. He wore black armor, thick, sleek markings. Not known in any database, his face was hidden beneath a metal helmet with a red glowing visor. The Flameborn opened fire. The hallway lit up with plasma. Explosions rocked the walls. When the smoke cleared, the figure was gone. "Where is he?" one of them hissed. Then a voice came from their own comes. Deep, calm. "Human, you fired first." The light shut off. Screams followed. Outside, General Varrock watched the feed cut to black again. He stared at the screen in disbelief. "Who is he?" demanded. No answer. No intel. No records. And yet, the voice sounded familiar. Another officer stepped forward, face pale. "Sir, we may have found something." He tapped a console. A data profile appeared. Cain Vos, former Earth Marine commander, declared KIA 5 years ago. Last known location, classified. Varrock leaned in. He had heard that name before. Cain Vos, the ghost of Vesper Prime. A name whispered in Drexer war circles. A human who had led the defense of a colony world for 72 hours, lone holding off. A full Drexer assault before disappearing without a trace. "Impossible," Varrock said. "He's dead." The officer looked at him. "We thought this outpost was abandoned too, sir." Varrock stared out the window. Below him, the planet burned in pieces, but not the outpost, not Trident. That stood tall. He clenched his fists. "This is no outpost," he said. "This is a black site." That meant secret. Hidden from all known databases. Even Earth's own colonies didn't know it existed. Cain Vos had faked his death, and now he was here, waiting, planning, killing. Var felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Doubt back on the surface. Deep beneath the outpost, Cain stood. In front of a giant screen, beside him was Oracle, the AI running the entire base. It had no face, no form, just a soft, calm voice. "They're sending everything," Cain said quietly. "They believe you're a ghost," Oracle replied. "They're afraid." Cain looked at the feed, where dropships were preparing in orbit. More troops, more firepower. "They think more numbers will help," he muttered. "It won't." He turned and looked out through a small window into the tunnels. His team was ready. Silent soldiers in dark armor, not machines, not monsters. But not regular humans either. They were part of Project Revenant, built for survival, trained to fight in the shadows. Enhanced for speed, strength, and endurance. Outpost Trident wasn't just a trap. It was a lab, a forge, and Cain Vos was its sword. "Let them come," he said. "They still don't understand." Up above, Varrock paced. He sent new orders. "Launch. Another wave, sweep the area. Bring in heavy plasma units." He wasn't going to lose to one man. But as the new ships launched, alarms began flashing. Trident has activated an orbital defense system. "What defense system?" he barked. "The ones that aren't supposed to exist." Too late. Blue beams shot up from the mountains. Quiet, bright, fast. 2 Drexer ships exploded in orbit before they even entered the atmosphere. Another dropped like a rock. Engines melted. Varrock roared, slamming his fist into the console. "What is this place?" No one could answer. Back on Trident, Cain watched the ship debris fall like burning rain. He turned to Oracle. "Ready Phase 2, confirmed," the AI replied. The screen changed. New targets lit up. Not just Drexer soldiers. Supply lines, fuel reserves, command. Cain didn't want to win. He wanted to send a message. They weren't just defending an outpost anymore. They were making history. And the most powerful empire in the galaxy had just walked into their story. Not as conquerors, but as prey. The cold blue glow of wreckage burned above the sky. Drexer ships were falling one by one. Some exploded in the upper atmosphere, turning into balls of flame. Others dropped like stones, crashing into the hills outside Outpost Trident. The soldiers, still alive on the ground, could only watch in silence. They had come as conquerors. Now they were trapped. General Varrock stood frozen on the bridge of Varker's Wrath. His command crew worked furiously around him, shouting updates, adjusting controls. But Nothing worked. Orbital scans failed. Communications flickered. The entire outpost was surrounded by strange energy fields. Pull the fleet back from low orbit, Varrock growled.
Now we're flying blind down there.
Yes, sir, one of his officers replied, voice shaky. Varrock's red eyes narrowed. Had led invasions on 9 planets. He had burned cities, crushed rebellions, wiped out civilizations. But this was different. The outpost was no longer just a target. It was fighting back. And worse, it was thinking, somewhere inside it. Someone was planning this. Anticipating them. A man once thought dead. Cain Vos and Varrock was starting to believe the rumors. Back on the surface, deep inside the outpost's command bunker, Cain stared at an old Drexer helmet on his desk. Cracked, burnt, still dripping with black Drexer blood. He tossed it aside. I told them not to come, he muttered. He looked over his shoulder. His team of revenants stood red as silent, armored, faceless. They didn't speak unless needed. They didn't question orders. They were like shadows. Human, ... But more. Cain stepped forward and pulled up a tactical map. Dots lit up across the terrain. Drexer units trying to regroup, find shelter, retreat. They're scattering, he said. We keep them afraid. AI Oracle responded calmly. Several squads are converging on the north tunnel entrance. They believe it leads to the main power core. Cain nodded. Good. Let them believe that. It's far above, on the edge of the outpost's northern valley. A Drexer squad crawled toward a steel tunnel. They had lost communication with Central Command. Most of their dropships were gone. Morale was cracking. They needed shelter. A stronghold. A way to fight back. This tunnel, said the squad leader, leads under the outpost. If we cut the power, maybe we can shut down their defense systems. The others nodded. They entered cautiously. Plasma rifles raised, lights scanning the walls. The deeper they went, the quieter it got. Cold air, dripping water, no heat readings, until something shifted in the shadows behind them. One of the Drexer turned too slowly. A blade flashed through the dark, silent, clean. His body hit the ground before the others could react. Another went down. A flash of movement. Blood sprayed the wall. Enemy contact, one shouted. But there was no enemy to shoot at, only whispers, only footsteps in the dark. They tried to retreat. Only 2 made it out. Both were injured. One dragged the other, shaking, whispering the same words over and over. Not human, ... Not human, ... Varrock saw the footage from one of their broken helmet cams. The video was shaky blurry, but one frame froze on a figure. A tall man, armor black as night, glowing red lines across the chest, a cold, red visor where a face should be. Cain Vos, still alive, still fighting, still dangerous. Varrock clenched his jaw. How long have we been watching the wrong humans? He asked. No one answered. The Drexer had always thought humans were weak, emotional, divided, easy to control. But Cain Vos had shown them something else. Human patience, human rage, human vengeance. Varrock turned to his second game man. Recall all squads. Regroup near the command beacon. We will burn the entire outpost to ash. But sir, the officer said, our scans show heavy static. We can't get exact positions. I don't care, Varrock snapped. This ends now. Back inside the bunker, Cain watched the enemy movements on the screen. They're pulling together, he said. They want to hit hard. One final push. Oracle's voice came through the speakers. They believe numbers will protect them. Cain smiled, but it wasn't warm. Let's show them what small numbers can do. He turned to his team. Ghost pattern. Quiet. No mercy. Lights. No. Survivors. The revenants nodded once. Then they vanished into the tunnels. Outside, the Drexer forces moved like a pack of wolves. Dozens of armored warriors, weapons charged, pushing toward the heart of Trident. Their boots pounded the dirt. Their armor hummed with energy. They believed they could break this place with brute strength. They were wrong as they marched through. The lower trench, the air changed. It got colder, still, too still. One of them paused. Something's off, Then the ground beneath them opened. Explosions erupted from hidden mines. Smoke, dust, screams, and then the revenants struck. They came from the walls, from the trees. From beneath they didn't shout. They didn't shoot. Wildly, they picked their targets one by one. Each strike silent, each kill fast. The Drexer ranks broke. Some fired blindly. Others ran. The revenants followed. They weren't chasing. They were hunting in the command center. Cain stood still, watching it unfold. Varric, now watching from orbit, slammed his fist into the railing. He's not just defending the outpost, he muttered. He's testing us. He looked at the battlefield, now lit with fire and blood. No, he corrected himself quietly. He's studying us. Oracle's voice came through Cain's earpiece. Enemy forces down 62% remaining. Units are retreating to secondary landing zones. Shall I intercept? Cain thought for a moment. No, he said. Let them run. They may return with reinforcements. I hope they do, Cain replied. They need to tell their empire what happened here. He stepped away from the screen and walked into the hallway. His armor clicked with every step. He passed a wall filled with names. Names of soldiers who had died on Earth colonies. Forgotten names. Abandoned by the same empire, now mocking Earth's strength. Cain placed a hand on the wall. This outpost was built to hide, he said. Now it's time they see us. Above the planet, General Varrock watched the fire spread across the surface. His fleets were in disarray. Communications blocked. Ground forces decimated. He had made a mistake. A big one. And now, the most feared. Empire and the galaxy had something it never expected. Fear. Real fear. Because Cain Vos wasn't dead. And Earth wasn't sleeping. The galaxy just woke it up. A single Drexer soldier ran through the woods near Outpost Trident. His breathing was sharp and broken. Blood ran from a cut along his side. His weapon was gone, his helmet cracked. He didn't care. He just needed to escape. To get away from them, he stumbled into a clearing and dropped to his knees, gasping for air. All around him was silence. No engines, no radio signals, no squad mates. He was alone. A soft sound came from behind him, like metal brushing dirt. He turned too slowly. A figure stood there. Black armor, glowing red visor. Not human. Not Drexer. Something in between. The soldier opened his mouth. To scream, the figure raised a blade. Then there was only silence again. Back in orbit. General Varric watched the troop losses rise. The number climbed with every passing hour. Over 400? Confirmed dead? Another 120 missing. It's probably worse than dead. They weren't just losing soldiers. They were being hunted. They're not fighting a battle, Varric muttered. They're sending a message. His second-in-command stepped forward, face pale. Sir, I've reviewed the attack patterns. The same 6 individuals are responsible for almost every ambush. They hit hard, vanish, repeat. No mistakes. Same. 6. Varric's voice sharpened. Yes, sir. Fast. Strong. Beyond human baseline. Whatever they are, they're not standard infantry. Varric's jaw tightened. Project Revenant. The officer blinked. That name isn't in the records. It wouldn't be, Varric said coldly. It's what Earth developed after. We bombed Vesper Prime, genetic edits, neural enhancements. Armor bonded directly to the spine, built for total war. His voice dropped. Cain Vos was the first. The room went quiet. Varrock looked at the burning planet below and felt something. Unfamiliar. Pressure. The weight of a miscalculation. They hadn't walked into a weak, forgotten colony. They had walked into a forge, down on the surface. The revenants moved like shadows across the broken landscape. One climbed the remains of a Drexer walker and planted a tracker. Another planted silent charges beneath a retreating patrol. A third moved through the trench lines. Slicing throats in total silence. They didn't speak. They didn't celebrate. They just worked. Back in the command bunker, Cain Vos stood in front of a live feed. The Drexer were retreating, pulling back. To the hills, building makeshift defenses. It wouldn't help. Oracle's voice echoed calmly. Drexer command structure is splintering. Local officers are issuing separate orders. Their chain of control has fractured. Cain didn't smile, but his eyes showed something close. They're afraid. They should be. Oracle, said Cain. Zoomed in on a cluster of Drexer units hiding behind the wreckage of a dropship. A beacon blinked softly from the ship's core, emitting a silent pulse. They're trying to call for help, Cain said. Oracle replied instantly. They believe Earth will respond. Cain's voice lowered. Let them believe that. He typed a quick code into the console. 10 seconds later, the beacon exploded. Back in orbit, Varric saw the blast from space. Another signal cut off. He turned to his communications officer. Try again. Use deep-range bursts. Ping the Empire. Request full reinforcements. The officer shook his head. Sir, the entire system is being jammed. From the surface, a part of the Outpost is doing this? The officer hesitated. Sir, it's not the Outpost. It's coming from underground. Something bigger than a base. A full installation. Claws dug into the control panel. What the hell is this place? No one had the answer, but someone knew what was coming. On the far edge of the planet. In a hidden valley, a massive metal structure began to open. Slowly. Quietly. Like a sleeping monster waking up. Huge sliding doors pushed aside mountains of dirt. It's inside launch racks. Weapon grids. Hangars full of drones, sleek and black with glowing blue cores. Cain stood on the viewing deck, watching it all. This was Phase 2, he said quietly. Oracle responded, confirming orbital clearance. Uplink clean. Targeting systems online? Cain stepped forward. Then begin. In the sky above Trident, clouds began to twist. Not naturally, they were being pushed by. Something rising. The Drexer looked up. It was the last thing some of them ever saw. Black. Its drones exploded from the valley like a swarm. Silent. Precise. Each armed with twin plasma turrets and adaptive camouflage. The sky turned into a storm of fire and metal. They didn't shoot randomly. Each one had a target. Each one hit its mark. Drexer officers, command units, ammo caches. The Empire was being surgically dismantled. On the Varker's wrath, Varric's hands trembled. Where did they get this kind of tech? He demanded no answer. This is Earth technology. No, his engineer finally said. This is something else. This is Earth off the leash. Cain watched the chaos unfold from the control deck. He didn't cheer. He didn't speak. He just nodded. Everything was happening exactly as planned. Years ago, when he disappeared, people thought he'd died. In reality, he had gone underground literally. Recruited for a program so secret even Earth's military denied it. Sent to build something no one else could, not just a defense, a lesson. The galaxy had laughed at humans for too long, called them weak. But now the strongest empire had come to raid a small outpost and was begging for a way out. One of Cain's revenants walked up beside him. He didn't speak either, just handed Cain a small data stick. Cain plugged it into the console. On screen, intercepted Drexer communications, panic screams, commands ignored, and one phrase repeated over and over. Get us off this planet, Cain. Leaned into the microphone. His voice was calm, cold, clear. To the Drexer Empire, you started this. You brought the fire, but you weren't ready for what you lit. He paused. This isn't war. It's a demonstration. The message echoed into the black. Varric heard it in orbit. All his officers did. Every Drexer ship still online received the transmission, and none of them had a response. They were losing, not because of numbers, not because of tech, because they had underestimated humanity. And now, they were watching the cost of that mistake, in blood, in fire, in silence. A Drexer command ship lifted off from the surface of Trident. It shook violently, engines screaming, panels sparking. Inside, wounded soldiers packed into every seat and corridors, some missing limbs. Others, wide-eyed with fear, no one spoke. Had seen things they didn't understand. They had fought enemies they couldn't touch. And now, all they wanted was to get away. "Final thruster check," barked the pilot, barely holding it together. "We are leaving this cursed world." Ships surged upward, climbing fast toward the stars. But then, everything went dark. The power shut off mid-air. The engines choked. The ship stopped. It's climbing. It began to fall. Screams filled the cabin. The last thing they saw before hitting the ground was a flashing, red message on every screen. "The doors stay closed until the story ends." Cain Vos stood in the Trident control center, watching the wreckage burn from afar. His arms were crossed, his face unreadable. Oracle's calm voice filled the room. "Extraction denied. Atmospheric lock remains in effect. No outbound movement permitted." Cain nodded. "Good. We're not done." He turned to the other revenants. "They're trying to run. Make sure they earn it if they try again." Without a word, the team disappeared into the tunnels. Outpost Trident wasn't just fortified. It was sealed. No Drexer ship, no matter how fast or advanced, could break the atmosphere now. Not without permission. And Cain had no intention of giving. In orbit, General Varric stared at the falling command ship. It hit the ground in a fireball. He clenched his fists, voice shaking. "That's 4 ships down in a single day. Can't even evacuate." The bridge of the Verker's wrath had gone quiet. No one looked him in the eye. Every officer knew it now. They were stuck, trapped in a war they didn't plan for. Varric slammed, his fist against the metal railing. "Send everything. All reserves. Crush that outpost." Now, his second-in-command turned. "Sir, with respect, we did. And it's still standing." Silence passed between them. No one dared speak again. Down. On the surface, Drexer survivors grouped together in the burned-out wreckage of their camp. Some built makeshift defenses. Others prayed to the old gods of their kind. The most elite warriors in the galaxy were now hiding behind scavenged debris. And something worse, something unthinkable was spreading. Dr. Exert never doubted they were born to conquer. They were. Trained to kill without question, but now every dark shadow looked like death. Every flicker of movement sent them aiming weapons in every direction because the revenants were still out there hunting. One soldier whispered to another, "Are they?" His comrade answered in a low, shaking voice. "They're not human anymore." Far beneath their feet, in the hidden levels of Outpost Trident, Cain stood before a massive map of the battlefield. LED lights marked every Drexer location. Enemy was shrinking, scattered, weak, terrified. "They're turning on each other," Oracle said. Some lower-ranking officers had begun fighting over control. Cain didn't blink. Let them. He walked to the far side of the room, where a long window showed the horizon. In the distance, the wreckage of Drexer ships smoldered. Smoke painted the sky. He tapped the glass. "I want them to understand why they're dying," Oracle responded. "Message protocol is ready." Cain turned, nodding once. "Play it." Across the battlefield, every Drexer helmet, visor, and device lit up at the same moment. A video played. Cain Vos stood on screen still, calm, armored in black, visor glowing. His voice was soft, measured. Double quotes, "You came here for an easy win. For a weak colony, for slaves, maybe trophies, maybe worse." He paused. "You came to show your power." The video cut to rapid scenes, helmet cam footage of Drexer soldiers screaming. Revenants striking in the dark, ships exploding in the sky. Cain's voice returned. "But you didn't find prey here. You found proof." Another pause. "Proof that Earth watches, that Earth remembers. And when Earth builds in secret, it doesn't build weapons." The feed flickered, showing a brief flash of the underground Trident facility, the drones launching. The lab's glowing with experimental tech. "It builds warnings." The final image was Cain again. He leaned closer to the screen. "You're not trapped by walls. You're trapped by your choices." Then the feed ended. For the Drexer still alive, it was worse than a battle. It was humiliation. Cain wasn't just killing them, he was controlling the story. and in their culture, now it was a fate worse than death. Back aboard Varker's Wrath, Vark stood frozen. He had never felt anything like this. Not in decades of war. Not on any battlefield. But now, shame, and behind it, fear. He turned slowly toward the crew. Find a way through the jamming. Burn the outpost. I don't care if it takes the whole damn fleet. The room didn't move. Then, a voice from the back. What if? Can't, Vark snapped. What did you say? The younger officer repeated, slower. What if we can't win this, sir? What if this was never a battle? Varric stepped closer. His eyes narrowed. You're saying we surrender? No, the officer said. I'm saying, maybe we were meant to come here, to lose, on purpose. That stopped Varric cold. He turned away, lips tight, because deep down, some part of him already knew. This wasn't a random outpost. It wasn't. A mistake. It was a trap built with perfect precision, designed not just to destroy a fleet, but to send a message to an entire galaxy. Back in the heart of Trident, Cain sat alone in the war room. Screens buzzed quietly. Light flickered off his armor. His eyes were tired, but focused. He wasn't here to win a battle. He was here to write history. And now, the Drexer finally knew. They weren't just fighting humans. They were facing what? Humans become when pushed too far. No ships were leaving. No mercy was coming. Not until the story was finished. The message played again. Cain Vos. Still, calm, unshaken. You're not trapped by walls? His voice echoed. You're trapped by your choices. Every Drexer soldier heard it. On their visors, in their helmets, inside the last few undamaged dropships. It wasn't just a message anymore, it was a sentence. They had come for conquest. They had walked. Into judgment, on the far side of the ruined camp, a Drexer captain dropped to his knees. He tossed his rifle into the dirt and looked up at the smoke-filled sky. I request surrender, he said quietly into his cracked cum. Anyone, please? Anyone receiving this? Silence. Then the static cleared. Cain's voice came through. We don't accept surrender here. The captain froze. Cain continued, voice low and sharp. Because this wasn't war. This was a test. In orbit, General Varrock stared down at the planet through the observation window of Varker's Wrath. The surface still burned. Explosions bloomed in slow motion, like flowers made of fire. The Empire's banners once planted so proudly in. The dirt were now buried beneath ash and blood. Varrock turned to his officers. Pull back what remains. Get them to a secure zone. I'll open negotiations. The room fell silent. Sir. Someone asked. Varrock growled. I said I'm offering terms. No one's responding. His second-in-command said quietly. He's jamming us again. Not him, Varrock said, turning to the screen. Cain Vos doesn't care about talks, but maybe he'll listen if I ask. A comlink opened. Unstable, blurry. But Cain's image appeared. Helmet off, gray at the temples. His face scarred, eyes hard but alive. Varrock stepped forward, jaw tight. Cain Vos. Cain didn't speak. Varrock tried again. I am General Varrock. Of the Drexer High Fleet, I am requesting safe withdrawal of my forces under a ceasefire protocol. Still Cain said nothing. The silence was heavy. Then Cain spoke low and cold. You want to negotiate now? After raiding an outpost, killing civilians, bombing a planet with no declaration? This was a military mistake, Varric said.
Our
Intelligence said the colony was abandoned. We didn't know, Cain cut him off. You knew what kind of galaxy this was. You didn't care. You thought we were still the same scared humans you met a century ago. Varric's voice lowered. I was doing my duty. Cain stepped closer to the screen. His eyes burned. So was I. For a moment, the two men stared at each other, warriors. Commanders, enemies who understood one another far too well. Then Cain leaned back. You don't need a truce, he said. You need to remember. Varrock blinked. Remember what? Cain's voice dropped to a whisper. What humans do to empires that try to break them. The feed cut out. Down on the surface, the remaining Drexer soldiers fell back to their last. Hold out a crater left by a failed airstrike. It wasn't a base. It wasn't cover. But it was all they had. There were maybe 100 of them left. Out of thousands, they were supposed to be the best. Now they were barely holding on. One soldier looked around and whispered, "This was supposed to be easy." Another replied, "We thought they were soft." A third said nothing, just looked up at the clouds, where human drones still circled like vultures. Then, from the ridge, they saw movement. A figure stood at the edge of the crater, alone, tall, black. Armor. Red visor. Cain Vos. He looked down at them. Silent. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't speak. He just watched. And somehow, that was worse than any shot fired. Inside the command center of Trident, Oracle updated its logs. Drexer forces have ceased coordinated activity. Most are attempting passive survival. No signs of organized resistance. Cain nodded. Begin Phase 3. The lights dimmed. A hum filled the facility. Buried silos opened across the terrain. This time, no explosions followed. Instead, drones flew overhead and broadcast. Screens appeared in the sky. Holographic projections stretching across the clouds. Every planet in the outer rim tuned in. Civilizations watching the war in silence were now watching a story, and Cain Vos was telling it. He stood before the camera, helmet under one arm, blood on his shoulder. Calm, not victorious. He spoke like a historian, not a soldier. The Drexer Empire came here without warning. They believed they would destroy another forgotten human colony. What they found instead was something different. He turned slightly. The projection behind him showed Earth, then faded into blueprint strident revenant units. The drone swarms. They found what happens when humans stop begging and start building. Then the image shifted again. Helmet. Cam footage of Drexer raids across other planets' enslaved colonies. Burning cities. Cain looked into the camera. "We've seen what you do to the weak. That's why we stopped being weak." A final clip played of revenants walking through smoke, dragging defeated Drexer officers out of their bunkers. Cain's voice returned one last time. "Let this outpost be the end of something old or the beginning of something worse." Feed cut. The message was clear. Earth wasn't waiting anymore. It was watching. And it had just told the entire galaxy, "We are not afraid of empires." Back in orbit, Varric sat in silence. His hands were shaking. No. One spoke to him. He looked out at the stars and knew that this failure would echo, not just through his own empire, but through all of them, because a single outpost armed with nothing but ghosts and secrets had broken the galaxy's most feared army, and it wasn't over yet. Down below, Cain stood with his team, the Revenants. They didn't celebrate. They didn't speak. They simply turned toward the mountains and vanished into the smoke, waiting for the next message to deliver, waiting for the next empire to forget. Smoke hung low over Trident like a warning that wouldn't fade. The Drexer Empire was broken here. Their last strongholds had gone silent. Ships stopped trying to leave. Even their elite had vanished into hiding, but Cain Vos wasn't done. Not yet. In the black chamber beneath Outpost Trident, he stood before a tall device, silent, humming, alive. It looked ancient, older than any human tech. Its core pulsed a slow blue light. "Is the relay ready?" he asked. Oracle responded at once. Interstellar broadcast array is aligned. They're patched into the central Drexer warnet. Cain stared at the screen, his hands clenched behind his back. "Then let's send them the truth." The relay began to glow, far away on the Drexer homeworld, inside a polished obsidian war tower. Alarms screamed. One by one, screens flashed to life. Officers ran between terminals, shouting commands. Scanning for interference, it was already too late. Cain's face appeared on every wall, every ship, every fleet command. Channel. His voice reached the Drexer. Emperor himself. This is Cain Vos, Revenant Commander, human. He stood motionless, black armor reflecting pale light. You sent your best to break us, to make an example. You lost more than soldiers here. You lost the illusion of control. Scenes played behind him. Footage of Drexer cruisers exploding. Elite troops cornered, generals captured and kneeling. You wanted to erase Trident. Instead, you gave it a name the whole galaxy knows now. He leaned slightly toward the camera. We didn't win because we're stronger. We won because we don't forget. And we never stopped preparing. Then came silence. No threats, no promises, just the look in his eyes. It wasn't rage. It was certainty. Back on the surface of Trident, the remaining Drexer huddled together under torn metal and fractured armor. No one barked orders anymore. They had no leader, no way home. And now, their families in 1,000 distant worlds had just seen their humiliation broadcast in real time. One of them whispered, "We're ghosts now." Another said nothing, just dropped his rifle and walked into the darkness. Beyond the crater, vanishing. He knew there would be no rescue, no glory, just memory and shame in orbit. Aboard Varker's Wrath, General Varrock sat in a war room that no longer felt like a throne. The lights dimmed, the windows were sealed. Across from him sat something no Drexer had ever expected to see in person. A human diplomat, gray suit, cold smile, calm voice. "Let's be clear," the diplomat said. "We didn't ask for this war. You brought it to our doorstep." Varrock didn't speak. "You thought Earth was soft," the human continued. "You thought we were scattered, weak, recovering from old wounds." A pause. "But you missed something. While your empire flexed, Earth built. While you bombed outposts, we made ghosts." The diplomat tapped the table. "Ghosts like Cain Vos?" Varrock finally spoke. "He isn't normal." "No." The diplomat. "Agreed. He's necessary." Silence fell again. "You're not here to negotiate," Varrock muttered. "Correct," the human said, standing. "We're here to observe, to remember. And to make sure the next empire that considers a raid on human soil asks one question." He leaned in. "Is it worth what happened to Trident?" Then he walked away. Below, in the lower levels of Outpost Trident, Cain walked alone through a dim corridor. Metal walls covered in scar marks from battles long past. He passed empty bunks, training rooms, the armory, still locked tight, and finally came to a room with no name. Inside sat a single chair, a screen, and a file. He opened it. It showed the faces of each Drexer general who approved the raid. Their homeworlds, their allies, their military networks. Cain stared for a moment. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply pressed his thumb to the screen. The system was confirmed. "Target set." Oracle's voice came through quietly. "Do you want authorization to launch?" Cain's voice was quieter than usual, almost tired. "Not yet." Oracle waited. Cain turned to the screen again. "They need time to understand, to feel it. Let the silence do its job." "Understood." Then Cain stood and left. He passed his revenants on the waist. Still armored, still sharp, still quiet. No victory speech. No parades. Just the silent understanding between ghosts. They had finished what they were created for, and now they were waiting for the next threat, the next lesson, because Trident had become more than a place. It was a line in the sand, and Cain Vos was the hand that drew it. Weeks later, across the outer rim, quiet rumors spread. A Drexer fleet in another sector had gone dark. A hidden colony once run by slavers had vanished. And in each case, the only trace left behind was the same message, burned into walls and communication logs. Trident remembers. Whispers turned into stories, into warnings. And in time, empires stopped sending scouts near human space. Not because they feared war, but because they feared what would. Follow Cain Vos didn't make speeches. He didn't raise armies. He didn't wave flags. He just made sure no one forgot what happened when you pushed humanity too far. And in the end, the galaxy finally understood. The raid on Trident wasn't just a failure, it was a funeral. For an empire that thought it was untouchable, and for the myth that humans would ever be. Easy prey again. The stars were quiet. Too quiet. In the weeks after Trident, the galaxy waited. Not for a counterattack, not for diplomacy, for what came next. The Drexer Empire, once feared across 1,000 systems, had gone silent. Their ships stopped patrolling. Their flags stopped flying. Their ambassadors stopped speaking. And everywhere people asked the same question. What did the humans do to them? On trade stations, old spacers told stories of fire raining from the sky, of machines with no faces, of a man called Cain Vos, who never blinked. At first, they were just stories, then footage leaked. Actual Drexer helmet cam recordings. Screams, static, shadows moving in impossible ways. Drones flying without wings, soldiers disappearing in fog, and one voice, always returning, you made a mistake. On the edge of a mining colony in the Vero Belt, a group of mercenaries sat around a flickering table watching the footage for the 10th time. It's edited, one muttered. Doesn't matter, said another. Even the Drexer stopped denying. They looked at the screen again. CainVos.com, standing in the ruins of the Drexer command post, blood drying on his armor. He looked into the camera. You want fear? You'll have it. You want a war? Try again. And the screen went black. No logo. No flag. Just a symbol, an inverted triangle inside a circle. Trident. From that moment, something shifted across the stars. The balance of power once held by old empires now sat in a shadow. No one could see it. No one could name it, but it was there, watching, waiting, back on Earth. The United Defense Council met for the first time in over a decade. 10 nations, 6 colonies, and 3 deep space clans sat in silence around the circular room in the center. Of the table was a small device, a black cube, still warm. It had arrived in orbit 3 days ago from a sealed, unknown transport drone. No ID tags, no registry, no known launch point. When they activated it, Cain Vos' voice spoke. Operation Revenant is complete. The room shifted. The oldest member, Admiral Ishiro, leaned forward. He did it.
Out.
No one answered. The footage had been reviewed. Confirmed. Cain hadn't just stopped a raid. He had destroyed the image of human weakness across the stars. But now came the real question. What now? Earth was stronger than it let on. Cain's team, the Revenants, had been in development for over 20 years. Silent, hidden, unacknowledged. And now the galaxy knew they existed. Counselor Chen spoke softly. He gave us fear. Should we use it, General? Kovac frowned. Or will we become the thing we warned against? Admiral Rowe simply said, we don't need to decide yet. Cain already has. They all turned back to the cube. A second message had begun. Cain's voice again. Lower, slower. I didn't do this for glory or revenge. I did it because we forgot. Thought peace would protect us. But peace is just the pause between storms. Beat. This time we're ready and we're watching. Then the cube shut down. The room was silent for a long time until Rose stood. Let the galaxy remember. Let them whisper. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Trident lives. Somewhere deep in uncharted space, a small freighter picked up a signal. Single, repeating tone. They traced it to an asteroid field. Hidden between rocks was a beacon. They approached carefully, guns armed, expecting a trap. Instead, they found a satellite human design. It flickered on as they got close. A projection played into space, Cain Vos. The freighter crew backed up, but Cain didn't speak. He simply stared forward. Unglean. Behind him, new symbols, flickered coordinates, star charts, coded messages. One of the crew whispered, "What's he doing?" The pilot replied, "He's warning someone." The recording ended. Then the satellite self-dashed, destructed clean. No debris, just another ghost. And from that moment, more beacons began appearing. Not near human systems, but near empire capitals. high value, supply routes, military graveyards. Each one carried a different message. All of them from Cain. All of them clear. We see you. In the shadows of the galaxy, fear turned into calculation. The Vorgon Syndicate canceled its plan to invade Mars' outer stations. The Vrel Dominion halted its slave trade near human sectors. Even the Tsar Hivhu spoke through spores and code sent. A diplomatic message for words. We respect the Trident. It didn't matter that Cain Vos wasn't a general or a president or an official anything. He had become something else. A reminder. A name spoken only when the room was dark. A symbol burned into the stars. Back at Outpost Trident, the wind had returned. The fires were out. The land was scarred, but healing. Inside the command center, Cain stood alone. No camera, no broadcast, just him, watching the map of the galaxy slowly shift one by one. Enemy fleet movements had changed course. Trade patterns rerouted, borders redrawn. Cain didn't smile. He just turned to Oracle and said, "Log it." "Log what?" the AI asked. Cain looked at the stars. The quiet. He walked down the corridor, past the old scars on the walls, past the silent barracks, and into the dark again, because Cain Vos knew something the galaxy had forgotten. Wars don't end when the last shot is fired. They end when the memory of what happened is strong enough to keep the next one from starting. And thanks to Trident, that memory now burned in every empire. They had come for a quick kill. They left with a story the stars would never forget. HFY, Humanity F, asterisk, unyielded. Asterisk, asterisk, no, humanity. Fought back, and now? Now the galaxy would think twice, because Cain Vos was still out there, and Trident was still watching.